A new report by the UCLA and the Civil Rights Project in UCLA says that New York is actually the most segregated states when it comes to their public education system. So that's kind of surprising because a lot of people would make the assumption that it's actually in the South, but their data proves otherwise. Let me tell you exactly what they found. In New York City, the largest school system in the U.S. with 1.1 million pupils, the study notes that many of the charter schools created over the last dozen years are among the least diverse of all, with less than 1% white enrollment at 73% of the charter schools, which is insane.
Now, the charter schools were supposed to get us a better system. I'm not sure that that's succeeded. Now, there's been studies showing the charter schools. There was one in the recent past that said they do worse on average than public schools, so that didn't help very much. Now, there was one that's even more recent that said in that case they found some that did a little better. So it's a mixed results there, right? Obviously they haven't done very good on integration, so all these Republicans like charter schools, and then what did we get, right? Okay, but put that aside for a second here. When you look at it, it's not altogether that surprising. Like you think, oh wow, New York City is super liberal. Yeah, it's liberal schmibble, right? I mean, I know people that live in New York City. I know people that live in LA, et cetera.
Yeah.
They get their kids into private schools as quickly as they possibly can. And that's just a reality.
I think New York City, for the most part, is socially liberal, but when it comes to anything related to finances, it could be pretty freaking conservative.
Yeah.
So of course you have like these little enclaves and you have these little areas where people do segregate. They not only self-segregate, but it has more to do with socioeconomic status. So if you're Latino or Black, you know, you're much more likely to be at a lower socioeconomic status for a number of different reasons, institutional racism, what have you. And white people, they're gonna live in wealthier neighborhoods and you're gonna go to schools in those neighborhoods.
Especially in New York, where there's a lot of really wealthy people living next to a lot of poor people. And so I get it, man. I mean, it's one thing to say like, oh yeah, liberal tree hugging, yeah, let's go hug a tree, whatever. It's another thing to say, I'm gonna send my kid to a school that I know is not that good. So, I mean, those socioeconomic conditions then affect the quality of the school. And I can't tell them in good conscience, no, you do have to send them to that school. What I would do instead is I would go to the Finland model, right? And I would say, no, everybody goes to public schools, okay? And then when you do that, I know that seems radical, but Finland is actually consistently scores in the top 3, usually number 1 in achievement in these test scores, and that's the system that they use. Because if you have rich people mixed in with middle class, poor, etc., they're going to make sure all those public schools are top notch. So
here's the thing that I worry about, though. I would argue that our diversity actually goes against the Finland model. And the reason why I say that is because when you're coming from a lower socioeconomic status, you're having some serious issues when it comes to education because your parents simply do not have the resources, the same resources as wealthier kids, to sit there and do homework with you. They just don't. They have to work 2 jobs. They're trying to make ends meet. So that's totally understandable. So you kind of group all of these students together, and yes, the parents from the wealthier kids are going to try to invest more in the public education to ensure that their kids are going to do better. But there's a fear, and I think there's a legitimate fear, that kids who come from a higher socioeconomic status and have a better educational background are going to be held down by students who don't have the same opportunities.
I don't agree. I get it. It's a perfectly legitimate concern. But partly because I experienced something different. We had a mini Finland system where I grew up in East Brunswick, New Jersey. I went to a public school, and there was a lot of, upper middle class. I guess there were some significantly rich people there too. And there was a lot of people who were middle class. There was a lot of people who were poor, right? Overall, it was a fairly wealthy suburb on average if you compare it to other places. But there was definitely a ton of poor kids in the school. And yeah, some of them, because of the struggles of their parents, et cetera, whatever, I don't know their reasons, didn't study as hard. So what? Yeah, okay, they smoked outside. Yeah, whatever, they did drugs at parties that I would have liked to attend. Okay, whatever, right? It didn't somehow keep me down. Oh my God, they are such a bad role model, I cannot study.
No.
And there was a lot of people who had tremendous success from that school.
I know, but that's not what I'm referring to. A lot of times teachers will have to adjust to the abilities that their students show or whatever.
But so
if they're okay, so I guess that's a way of mitigating
AP classes, you could do gradations, right? And I know because I started in the lowest reading class, because when I first came here, I didn't know how to speak English. And even when I had learned it, well, I wasn't very good at it, so it was in the lowest reading. And I worked my way up to the highest reading class. So I have that experience that maybe not a lot of people have. And I know that it can work. And those kids that I went to high school with, and I'm not like being, all liberal here or anything like that. Look, the guys that were in a lot of the honors classes, they weren't all rich or anything like that, but a lot of them were immigrants whose parents were engineers, doctors, so a little more upper middle class, etc. But those kids were smarter than any kids I've ever gone to college with, and down the line. So I know that it can work. And by the way, since we were all going to that public school, top of the line. I mean, they put those parents put in a ton of not just time but money as well.
Yeah.
So we wound up having better resources, good teachers and lights in our football field, right? So I think it can work. But this model, and even in the most liberal so-called city of New York, I think Anna makes a great point about how conservative they are when it comes to finances. It is broken. It's broken. And we've got to find a different model because this model isn't working.
Yeah.